We will now take up the topic of ritual and gender relations. We want to explore the many complex ways in which ritual communicates cultural ideas about femininity, masculinity, and relationships between women and men. And we've considered that because much of the learning in ritual occurs through embodiment and the manipulation of visual symbols, participants may be less aware of the fact that they are being trained in certain perspectives and behaviors than if they were told so directly through moral exhortations. Let's see how these ritual processes might play out specifically in the domain of gender relations. We want to think about both gender roles and also gender relations. Gender roles is a term that refers to behaviors that are typically expected of males and females or third gender in society. Gender roles include the work tasks that are typically assigned to men and women, but gender roles include many, many more things in addition, including, for example, patterns of speech, posture, gesture, dress, emotional expression, and expectations about leadership, domination, chivalry, loyalty, submission, or subservience. Gender relations, however, is a term that encompasses gender roles, but beyond that, it refers to the relationships between women and men that are common in a society. Those relationships may be a direct consequence of prevailing gender roles or a reaction to them. Gender relations is also a useful term because it points to the fact that gender identities and roles of male, female, or a third gender are relational, that they stand in relationship to one another. That is, femininity is often defined in relationship to or in contrast to masculinity and vice versa, that what is masculine is not feminine, for example. So in this unit, I'd like you to keep in mind those three different elements of gender relations. 1, the common expectations that a society holds about femininity and masculinity, gender roles. 2, how those roles are defined in relationship to one another, the relationality of gender roles. And 3, the accumulated feelings that may have developed about those relations, i.e., how easy those relationships are, or whether they create antagonisms that must be resolved. Okay, now to tie in ritual. We can imagine that different rituals might have different types of relationships to gender in a society. For example, a ritual might represent idealized gender roles and help train young people into the kind of gender roles and relations that will be expected of them as adults. The young people might be trained into roles that are configured as complementary, in which male and female are considered both important, although distinctive, that they balance one another somehow. If both are considered important and complementary, are they considered equal in importance, or is one considered more important and one is more dominant, while the other is trained to be submissive? Or a ritual might be a, quote, place apart, in which people are given license to play with gender roles that are normally forbidden to them in everyday life, a sort of role reversal. Another possibility is that a ritual might involve men and women, girls and boys, performing acts of aggression against one another, possibly serving as a release valve for tensions that are built up through everyday relations, and then ultimately keeping the peace between men and women. To explore the topic of ritual and gender relations, we will go to Morocco and Nepal. First, you will read Elaine Combe-Schilling's article, Etching Patriarchal Rule, Ritual Dye, Erotic Potency, and the Moroccan Monarchy, which is about Moroccan weddings. The groom and the bride in Moroccan weddings are separated for most, even all, of the wedding ceremony, each involved in separate ritual activities. One of the activities that the brides participate in involves the application of intricate designs in henna dye to their hands, arms, and feet. Then you will watch the film A Living Goddess in Kathmandu. Kathmandu is the capital of Nepal, with Hindu and Buddhist residents, and there are thousands of temples in the city dedicated to hundreds of goddesses. The film shows us that one of the goddesses in the city is considered a living goddess, Kumari. Also, we witness the performance of the Baru Tayegu ceremony performed by Nawari girls prior to their first menstruation. You will learn about some other important goddesses and also about 2 male gods. As you are reading the article and watching the film, ask yourself which of the following statements best characterizes the rituals depicted or described. A. The rituals introduce or reinforce gender inequalities through training participants in patterns of dominance and/or submission. B. The rituals assert gender complementarity, in which people have different gender roles that complement or balance one another, but without implying dominance of one gender over the other. C. The rituals assert gender complementarity, in which people have different gender roles that complement or balance one another, but even so, one gender is configured as subordinate to the other. D. The rituals take place within an atmosphere of gender playfulness and revelry, suggesting widespread experimentation and the possibility of a social transformation of gender identities, gender roles, and gender hierarchy. Your answer might be the same for both the Moroccan and Nepalese cases, or might differ. I look forward to reading your ideas in the discussion.